I think the club were on the cusp of some significant greatness at the time. We'd already had 2 FA Cup wins. We'd had an unfortunate defeat in a League Cup final in '82 to Liverpool. We'd won the UEFA Cup in '84, so that's 3 trophies in 3 years or thereabouts. And we had a really good team, but people nowadays bemoan the state of the or the involvement of the board and chairman, etc., in the running of the club. But I can assure you, back then, had it not been for the chairman of the time, I doubt very much that Keith Birkinshaw would have left, and the history of the club would have been probably a lot different, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's quite profound to say, and I'd rather talk about the history than talk about what happened this past week.
Yeah.
In case you were living under rocks, Spurs lost 2-1, and that's about all we're going to really touch on Europa League for this week.
Yeah, less said the better.
Yeah, no kidding. Simon, I know that obviously you're kind of our resident anorak. What do you remember from that time, specifically, just in your own mind, and how you felt about that time as it relates to what Vass is talking about now?
Well, unlike Vass, I wasn't living in London at the time. I was living on the sunny shores of Bournemouth, so it'd be interesting when we talk about that game today. And I just kind of moved into a rented bungalow with some mates of mine, and I was the only one in that night. In fact, we didn't have a TV, so I went to Curry's and I got into serious debt buying a colour TV to watch it on my own, specifically for the match.
Did you really?
Yeah. That's great. Well,
that's brilliant.
Those
so great.
Those weren't games that were on the TV down the pub, so and certainly not in Bournemouth. But I sat in front. I don't even remember if I had any. I probably didn't have any more money for beer. I just sat in front of the TV and was just riveted to it, and I danced with myself at the end of the evening, but it was an absolutely glorious time. And to Vass's point, we knew Berkey was leaving, and it was kind of a bittersweet moment. I do remember getting a little nervous because Graham Roberts left it late with the equaliser, and I thought we were at one point looking to go out, and obviously the penalty shootout. That was my first experience of really getting exposed, having any, I would say, skin in the game when it came to a penalty shootout, although England proved to provide plenty of that in future years. So, once I think we were 3-1 up, and Parks had made his first save, and Danny Thomas was there to win it for us, and unfortunately we had to wait for another goal and another heroic moment from Parksy, but I couldn't believe that we'd actually won that. And to Vass's point, I remember that time vividly. Coming out of the second division and getting thrashed by the likes of Liverpool and Arsenal in those early years was very frustrating, and it looked like we were going to stay in that mediocre stage of our existence as we had when we got relegated. But then Berkey kind of turned it around, and the two Argentinians really settled in, and they partnered well with Glenda, and 81 was pivotal, winning the cup final, going back the following year twice. We should have won the Liverpool game if it hadn't been for Souness chopping lumps out of Tony Galvin. We could have hung on and won that game. So didn't they score with like 9 minutes left, and we just died in extra time? Is that right, Vass?
Yeah, it was probably less than that, Simon. There wasn't very long left in the game. Archibald had put us in the lead quite early. Yeah. And you're quite right.
That was the only goal that we let in that tournament.
Yeah. I think it was Ronnie Whelan, wasn't it? He scored a goal quite late in the game, and then come extra time, I think our players, tiredness took over, and Liverpool just went on and won the game, which was quite unfortunate.
That was a pretty incredible Liverpool team that was winning a lot of silverware and had a lot of confidence, and you just knew that if we didn't put that away, it was going to be very tough to hang on to that, and lo and behold, right?
It was Liverpool in their heyday, Sam. Absolutely.
Yeah, they were very, very good. As you go back to the '84 final, and it was a very sad time for me because I had left England very quickly, and I'd actually left in right before that, and so it sucked for me that we won that, and I was in the States for the first time. But one of the great things about that match, which I think it was Martin's book along with Adam, and I think it's the boys from White Hart Lane, does a chapter on Tony Parks. He's a North London boy. Actually, his family was an Arsenal family. Was there an extra special connection with him around that time? I suppose especially after that, given his saves, given that he's from the area, given that he wasn't really supposed to play if it wasn't for Clemens being injured. Special kinship with him in the crowd, you think?
I can't speak for the rest of the crowd. I'm perfectly honest. Back in the day, I guess squads weren't a thing, if I could say that. You really had your first 11, one substitute. You had 2 or 3 players that maybe used to come in when there were injuries. So Parks was a little bit of an unknown quantity. At least he was to me. And we just saw this young kid in goal that night, standing in for one of the best goalkeepers in English football at the time. I really don't know what expectations we had, to be perfectly honest, but then he went and saved the first penalty, and it kind of put us in control of the penalty shootout, in effect, whereby as long as we kept scoring, then we would win. And it was hinging on the last penalty, as Simon just mentioned, with Danny Thomas. And I braced myself for that moment. I was going to let it rip. The whole crowd were going to let it rip. We were just expecting Danny Thomas to score, and that would be it. The cup would be ours. And then their goalie goes and pulls a save, and I'm just standing there thinking, damn, we've blown it. And I totally forgot that if Parks makes a save for their 5th penalty, that we'd still win it.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, this kid had been diving to his left for the first 4 penalties. Suddenly decides, I'm going to dive to my right now, and he pulls off a save. And we'd won the cup, and it took me a split second.
I think it took everybody probably a split second.
Yeah, no,
so surreal, right?
The whole stadium went mental, and it took me a split second. My eyes filled up. I was so happy. And that kid, he was probably the same age as me at the time, and he just helped win the cup for Tottenham. And it was a major trophy. Don't underestimate it. The Champions League was born out of that composition, because if you finish 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th maybe, I can't remember quite right now, but you would go into the UEFA Cup tournament. It was only the champions that entered what was then the European Cup. So it was a bloody tough tournament to win, and
it was a great one too, because it wasn't in the format that we have now with Europa League, right? It was under this. It was just 2-legged knockout the whole way through. Yeah, which is the way it should be, I think.
Yeah.
You a fan of that? Harken back to those days.
I guess so. I mean, I could sit here reminiscing for too long, which would really be a bit of a drag, I guess. But yeah, football was a lot simpler. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. I think modern football, the money side of it's kind of killed competitiveness. It's killed some element of aspiration and what teams can achieve, because it's really geared towards the rich clubs dictating what goes on. I mean, football's always been a money game, don't get me wrong, but the modern game today, the money is just causing a chasm between those that have it and those that don't, because the gulf is too big to bridge sometimes.
Vass, is there anything that you recollect back, positive or negative, matches that you've attended or watched on television or with friends or whatever, that whatever happened on the pitch literally brought you to tears?
I remember
sitting next to me at Hull.
that was
from the smell, though.
That was a pleasure.
Exactly. A terrible breath.
Okay, again, I'm going back again, but the 1982 game against Barcelona at White Hart Lane in the Cup Winners' Cup.
Oh, wow.
I have never, ever left a game of football feeling so angry. I was spewing. We came out that ground that night. Barcelona back then were not the Barcelona of today, so they were kicking lumps out of our players. Ray Clements made a mistake to give him a goal. We equalised. The night finished 1-1, but I left the game and I said to some friends that Barcelona are just animals. And funnily enough, the back page of The Sun the following day, which is a tabloid paper over here, the headline was animals. And that's really what it was. So that was one night that's quite vivid in my mind. But yeah, I mean, obviously football's full of emotion. You have good memories and bad memories, but that was one that sticks out for me.
So, Vass, you didn't go to Belgium in the week, did you?
No, I didn't go to Belgium, sadly, Simon, unfortunately. Watched it on the TV, and
that was enough.
That was
that should give you plenty of reasons to be thankful for not making that trip. Although it sounded like it was a great away day, just a great performance, right?
Sorry, Simon, I didn't catch that.
No, I didn't say anything.
No,
Sorry, Sam.
Mumbling.
Edit time.
Yeah, just me interrupting as usual. Sorry.
All right.
Well, maybe a segue to chitty chat quickly about if there's anything worth taking away from Thursday.
Oh, I struggled with whether or not we looked flat, or if we just simply at certain important junctures of the game got outplayed. We scored early, went up 1-0, and then totally capitulated and walked away, with a 2-1 loss, and it looked as though we were going to get the point on the road, and then the late goal, what was it, 76th minute or something like that, just kind of put a dagger in that, and the team just went flat after that happened. It seems like we had our chances, but so did they. Now they're the number one team in Belgium. They were in Champions League last year. The commentators were making notes about verbal notes about they were 3-0 down to Arsenal, came back to tie them, but they were also up by a good margin of goals in the second leg of that, and allowed Arsenal to come back and beat them. So they are kind of a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde club. Sound familiar? I think that they mirror Spurs to a certain point, and they're that center forward. Good God, the man's a beast. Very much reminded me of Benteke, and then he really commanded our back four. I really thought that, and as long as they were getting balls in, which they were able to get a few in, he became very dangerous. Like I say, he reminded me of a Benteke or a Gomis or someone of that ilk. Very strong on the ball, and ultimately we suffer that loss on the road, and it would have been great to get the point, stay on top of the group, but now we have to regroup. I believe Monaco and Karabakh, did they draw? I think they drew 1-1.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Yeah, Monaco's on top of the group now, right?
Is Monaco on top?
I
thought
so.
Oh, maybe they are.
I think they're 1 point ahead of us, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, I saw the headline. I haven't actually looked, but I think that's the case.
And I think the way the groups work, we are going to go right back against Anderlecht, right? That'll be the next one at home, and we'll play the group reversed, right?
Yeah, we play Anderlecht before we play the North London derby.
Okay, so as far as Europa League importance go, you have to get 3 points there. I think you really do, because Monaco is not going to be a pushover. They've proven that they can play. Karabakh, Are they dangerous? Can they nick something? Of course they can. So, I mean, there's no guarantees in football. We all know that. And